Bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
Hey guys, so we're here tonight. We are going to we're joined by the model himself, making a very rare appearance to pay tribute to a man that we all remember in some iteration in our fandom, and that is Scott Hall, who we sadly lost recently. I'll say this: my fandom for him was World Wrestling Federation. So tonight we're going to cover 3 of what we feel are his best World Wrestling Federation matches. We know he did a lot in AWA, had a previous run in WCW, then spent some more time in WCW, and then came back into the World Wrestling Federation or WWE. So we are going to obviously talk, and we'll check in with Rocco what he's been up to, why he's got a toothpick in his mouth. We all know why. But we want to start off with our first match, which we're going back to Razor Ramon's lone World Wrestling Federation Championship opportunity against Bret the Hitman Hart, and that's going to be at Royal Rumble 1993. And that's going to be on the Cock, as we say, Peacock. It's going to be Season 6, Episode 1. And we're going to go to 50 minutes and 56 seconds. So I'll give everybody a second to get there. And we're going to track Razor Ramon with his pre-match interview at the Arco Arena, home of Sacramento Kings. Pretty iconic stuff in Royal Rumble 93. I have a lot of favorites from this era, and this was a good Rumble. So is everybody there?
Yep.
All right. So, Rocco, you're our guest tonight, essentially, even though we're here to pay tribute to the bad guy. Hey, yo. Why don't you do the countdown for us, and we'll go into track it with Phil, okay? All right.
Hey, yo. In 3, 2, 1. Play.
Yes. Tomorrow, Chico, when I leave this arena, you'll have gold on my fingers, gold around my neck, and Hitman, I'm going to have your gold around my waist. So, Rougeau, take your camera crew and beat it, man.
Well, that.
Hey, yo, Hitman, get some sleep, Chico. I see you tomorrow, man. Now beat it, Rougeau.
Intros, Phil. Intros.
It's for the World Wrestling.
My finger slips.
That's what she said.
Challenger about
This is actually.
play, and he is, like the brain said, oozing with confidence and machismo. There is the bad guy. Looking good, baby. Looking good. Right now, let's take it to meet Gene Okerlund, who's standing by with Bret the Hitman.
All right, Razor Ramon is in the ring. World Wrestling Federation champion Bret the Hitman Hart as a fighting champion. Many title defenses for you since Saskatoon. However, I know this confrontation here at the Royal Rumble with Razor Ramon has gotten personal.
This is way beyond a title match now. He's crossed something. He's crossed the line that he's never going to forget. This is a personal thing. It's a family thing, and it's blood. You know something? Razor Ramon is going to pay. This isn't just an average title match. He is going to pay for everything. And I am going to defend my family's honor and defend I'm going to.
All right, very good. World Wrestling Federation champion Bret the Hitman Hart. You've got a big crowd standing by to greet you.
As if he didn't need some kind of provocation, he's got it right here. And when you hear the tremendous ovation when he is introduced. See, he's got to go into this match, Bret Hart, thinking he's the champion and conducting himself like the champion. You can't let personal things get in the way. Oh, listen to him. Here it comes.
You can cut it, Phil. So,
There's
go, all right, go ahead, Michael. Go ahead. What'd you have to say,
I was
bud?
just gonna say, I think of all Scott Hall's entrance music, that Razor Ramon has got to be my favorite. And I was kind of sitting here thinking, because my exposure to Scott Hall is a little bit different than you guys, and I didn't get the opportunity to grow up with him, which I wish I would have to have experienced him in his prime. But kind of looking back and reflecting, could you make the argument that he was the original Attitude Era character and kind of that first introduction of a cool bad guy? Would you guys agree with that? Or I see Brandy shaking her head. Who do you think? So people who agree, people who don't, let's just maybe go around the room and say, like, our thoughts on what his role was in that. And Brandy, I'll start with you because you have the dissenting opinion. Who do you think was the original bad guy?
Stone Cold Steve Austin. They started cheering him despite doing heelish tactics, and Razor really wasn't over with the crowd in terms of being cheered until the ladder match with Shawn, which is going to take place about a year later. So I don't think he was. I think he's that interesting transitional period between the cartoonish, like over the top character going into the Attitude Era, because they did touch that line, because obviously he's based off of Al Pacino's character from Scarface. And that's definitely towing the line of something edgier than the normal cartoony or everyday gimmick, like the Garbage Man or the Goon
I
or
hated
the
those.
Clown.
You mean Duke the Dumpster Jose?
He was
Well,
over.
Rocco, what do you think, buddy?
I disagree with Brandy, actually. I agree with Michael. Yeah, absolutely. Because, think about it. Razor, he was never intended to be a good guy. He's literally the bad guy. And I kind of disagree with where they started cheering for him. He started kind of getting some crowd reaction of cheering him and pop. Around this era right here, 93, he was still a heel for that long. But if you go back to WrestleMania 9, they were cheering him. They were booing Bob Backlund.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna have to do that actually because I don't remember that. But
I'll tell you.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go. No, Rocco, go.
I'll tell you one thing. Because I'm actually going back, and I've started with whatever downtime I have. I started right when Monday Night Raw began, so January 1993, and I'm somewhere in April of 1993 now. So I went back to the Raws, the Superstars, and the pay-per-views. So that's how I just have that knowledge now. But I was born in 1983 also.
So here we go. It's the Rocco and Michael are younger than us.
Oh my God!
Right. Here we go. Because I was waiting for Michael to go, well, in 1993, I wasn't born yet.
I was going to say, we're watching shows from 93, 94, and 95, and by the time we watch the SummerSlam one, I think at that point I'll be maybe 3 weeks old.
Oh, just shut your face. I love you, yet hate you.
So many people have that reaction to me, and I don't know why.
Well, first of all, I'm 41, and you're more successful than I am. So
that's not true.
Yes, it is. You're a fucking CPA. Shut up.
That don't mean much. Trust me.
What did I tell you guys before we went on the air? Somebody said, "Oh, he thinks he's better than us." I'm like, I don't think.
So let me give you my honestly. Razor Ramon for me was actually the first heel I liked, because I was always on. Well, you know what? Him and Shawn, I should say, because when Shawn was bad, I kind of liked him then too. Actually, I shouldn't say kinda, I did, but Razor was that edgier heel that I really liked. Always loved his music. I mean, to this day, I can jam out to that music. To this day. In fact, when I made that video, I watched it several times just because I can jam out to the music. So I agree with you, Michael. I don't know if I would say the start of the Attitude Era, but he was like the first kind of cool heel because he never lost the bad guy moniker.
Yeah.
Because he's being cheered off. The roof's gonna pop off the building, and they're saying the bad guy, Razor Ramon. That post spot, guys. I don't know how Brett did that without legitimately breaking his ribs, but he made it look good.
Now I need some clarification on this this cool heel conversation we're having here.
Sure, absolutely, Phil. Go ahead.
Are we just talking the original cool heel, or are we talking the original cool heel in WWE? Because if we're going original cool heel, there's 4 of them. The 4 horsemen were the original cool heels.
Yeah.
That's an interesting take, Phil, and
That's a
I
fair
would
point.
say that's actually a really interesting take. I did not think of them at all. I guess I was kind of looking at it through that WWF lens, but I guess the thing with the 4 horsemen, I guess actually, yeah, you can make that argument with Flair. I didn't think about that, but that's a really good point.
I guess maybe you didn't think of it because you were negative 26 at the time.
No,
well, that's very true.
You could make that point. You're absolutely right.
Yeah,
you gotta remember.
Excellent point, Phil.
I think all of our fandom here is World Wrestling Federation to start. I know that, right? So that's why.
Hey, pal.
Right. I was not NWA, WCW was not on my radar at this point. Well, in '93 they were, but I had no idea. If most of the time I clued into WCW when an old WWF guy came. I had no idea Scott Hall had been in WCW or the AWA when I was introduced to him here. No,
we want to forget that early WCW run.
Yeah, the Diamond Stud.
Henry, never forget the mustache.
Henry, I want to get your take there, bud.
2 things.
Yeah.
I think Phil's partially right, but all of Phil's opinions are devalued because he believes that Mick Foley devalued the WWE title when he won.
I didn't say that.
He also believes Kenny Omega's the best wrestler out there.
I never said that either. Nobody listens to what I say on the show. I've said
too long, Rocco.
AJ Styles is the best wrestler in the world. Hang on a second. Wait, this has been covered for years. Bye, Rocco. See you later, buddy. Sorry, you had that coming.
Don't feel bad. Heel, pal. Do the same thing to me all the time when I bring it up.
Rocco, I owe you 74 more of those, but I'll just call us even.
Okay, that's good.
It also could be argued that I'm biased towards heels because of the guy that's sitting next to me here in my chair. Because some people think he's a heel. I don't get it.
Can I have the floor back?
Yes, Henry.
I wasn't finished before fucking run my ass over. I don't think the first true bad guy in WWE was Razor Ramon. I think Phil kind of hit it on the head. Ric Flair, I think, was the first true bad guy in the WWE. He shows up in 1991. Jim Herd's just fired him. He's decided to take his belt and go play somewhere else. The real world's heavyweight champion shows up on WWE television. Makes more of a pop than Razor Ramon does. Not to take anything away from him, but I don't think he was the first by a long shot.
I got to tell you, again, this is, 1991. 11-year-old Frank Bruno had no idea who Ric Flair was. No clue.
It didn't exist, pal!
Right. I had no idea who he was.
Rocco, are you the one doing the Vince McMahon impressions?
That's him.
I couldn't tell. I really couldn't see, but that's awesome. I've never heard you do those before.
You didn't know Rocco's the mayor of Yonkers.
I
Edit that out! Edit that out!
We don't edit on this. No, what are you talking about? We don't edit it out. Even and I know that tonight we've chosen like 2. we've actually chosen 2 matches Razor doesn't come out on top on, but it's the story that they tell. Just this match is what is going to be 30 years old next year, and I'm still watching it like I haven't seen it before. It's really, And just to put some context to it, when Brett was saying this is personal now, and one of the things that we did not watch was they were doing a flashback of when Razor attacked Owen. Owen was doing a backstage interview, and he was clotheslined off of his chair by Razor. What's up, Henry?
Why doesn't Razor become the champion here?
You know, it's funny that
Hold
you
on.
say. Go ahead, go ahead.
Just a legitimate question. Why doesn't Razor become champion here if the plan is still to make Hulk Hogan the champion at WrestleMania 9 anyway? What does it matter if he takes it from Razor Ramon or he takes it from Yokozuna?
I can tell you, at this point, the plan was not Hogan yet. It was close, but Hogan, they hadn't decided to do that whole European tour bullshit with Hogan until about a month prior to
Hey,
Mania. So you
hey,
still had time.
Phil.
Where's Pritchard, everybody?
Phil, that was valid. That was valid. There was a European tour.
They argue about that all the time, don't they?
Oh yeah, constantly on
Because
the podcast.
it follows the form that if Razor Ramon is that cool bad guy and he gets wronged by the evil Asian monster and Yokozuna, wouldn't Hulk Hogan winning the title still make sense because it comes back to the good old red, white, and blue US of A?
But
Well,
I don't think
go
Razor
ahead.
needed it.
Oh God, but you know, when I went back maybe 3 hours just to time this out to get the time code to everybody, I thought to myself, what if Razor won this match? What if it was Razor and Yoko? I think that would have been actually a better match than Brett and Yoko was.
Ooh, I don't.
Well, hold on a
Okay.
second. Scott Hall for a big guy could still bump. I know that they wanted to be able to have Brett bump well for Yoko. I think Razor would have too. Look, we're just kind of playing armchair quarterback. What if? I mean, Brett had won the title. I think was October or September or October in Saskatoon, and
Saskatchewan.
no, it was Saskatoon.
Yes, in the
Now,
province
here's-
of Saskatchewan,
Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I see what you were saying. Sorry.
which is also this town where he had his very first match in Saskatoon.
That's enough.
Now here's my question, Frank. Kind of going off what you say, if they put the belt on Scott Hall, do you then turn around and put it on Yoko at WrestleMania, or do you let Scott Hall have a longer run and actually be the one to dethrone Yoko at WrestleMania? And how does Hogan play into the mix? I mean, there's so many different variables to look at with that, but to me, can you say that a 2-month reign for Scott Hall would be valuable? I mean, I think it would work, but I just, at this time, they weren't known for hot potatoing the belt as quickly as they do, say, nowadays.
Right.
I don't feel like that's true because if you look at the history of the WWE title from September the 1st of 92 until Brett wins it back from Yokozuna at WrestleMania 10 in March of 94, Flair holds the belt for just under 45 days. Hart's the champion for 6 months before Yokozuna holds it for like 90 seconds at the end of WrestleMania 9 before Hogan takes it back. They hot potato the belt from Ric Flair back to Yokozuna at King of the Ring 93. I don't feel like that's a valid point. If you're going to hot potato the belt, really, who does it matter who you hot potato it to if that person is the hottest heel in the land?
I mean, and that's actually that's a very valid point, Henry. I guess the only counter argument that I could introduce to that is you could make the case that a Flair, a Hart, have an established equity as a world champion that maybe shorter reigns don't. It's not as impactful for them to have shorter reigns because everyone knows what they're capable of, and they've had longer reigns in the past. Whereas for someone when they're in that initial run, it needs to be longer. The Yoko is kind of the exception in that it was the shock value of putting it back on Hogan. But that's the only counter argument I could introduce because really you raised some excellent points.
No, honestly, all really good points. I think that they honestly wanted to have Brett to have a longer title run. I think because they hot potatoed it from Flair to Brett anyway. Like nobody saw that coming, and at least I didn't.
Oh, that
Well,
clothesline. Nice.
Well, here's the perspective too. Brett was probably the biggest babyface at that point, because at this point, here, 1993.
He's probably the top dog, right?
So with Yoko, they wanted to get heat on him. They wanted to get real heat on him. So, what better than to get heat on Yoko than to beat the biggest babyface
Right.
at Mania,
Right.
and then have Hogan, a bigger babyface, come back and beat Yoko. And then, in the same breath, Brett and Hogan never went against each other. What was it, babyface versus babyface? Just
Good
saying.
point.
They couldn't
good
even do
point.
that in WCW when Hogan had turned heel. Apparently, that
I
wouldn't
actually-
have made money.
I actually thought of something else too on this sidebar, and it all ties into Scott Hall. But at this WrestleMania, I always remember WrestleMania 9 for being the Giant Gonzalez WrestleMania. So here's my idea. What if we don't have Giant Gonzalez, and what if we have
Wait, stop.
Undertaker?
Just stop right there where you say, what if we don't have Giant Gonzalez, and then start a new conversation. I'm kidding.
Good.
What I was going to suggest is, what if we had, and you could still do kind of a schmoz finish to keep the streak intact and to keep them both strong, but what if you don't have Yoko in the title picture, and what if you have Bret Hart versus Razor Ramon in the main event for the WWF title? Razor's the heel champion, and Bret's the babyface, and it's the rematch from Rumble. And then with Yoko, you just have him and Undertaker have a big man match that ends in a no contest that keeps them both strong and or some way keeps the streak intact. Because I think at this point, Undertaker won the match by disqualification anyway, so you could do a smudge type finish, and it kind of plants the seeds of the 1994 feud of Undertaker Yoko. Just an idea, and I see Henry's got his hand raised, so we'll start with him.
What the fuck is the point then of Yokozuna winning the Royal Rumble for that shot at the WWE title if you're going to then immediately take it away from him and give it to Razor Ramon? You might as well just have Bret Hart wrestle Hulk Hogan.
The only that's a good point. I mean, I guess the only argument that I could make on that one, because that's a excellent point I didn't think of, was at that point the Rumble hadn't been established yet as the storytelling device to get to WrestleMania. So I guess the only thing that you could do is maybe
I disagree, because they point out in the introductions to the Royal Rumble match in this same pay-per-view that the winner will get a WWF title shot at WrestleMania 9.
Yeah, Michael, this is when 93 is the year that the winner of the Rumble got a shot at WrestleMania. That's when
if you'll recall the year before when they hot potatoed the belt between the Undertaker and Hulk Hogan.
It was the Flair
they
match.
Held it up.
Flair
won his first title at the Royal Rumble. That continued on as a tradition where the winner of the Royal Rumble match would get a shot at WrestleMania.
Then I guess the only thing you could do, there in my scenario that makes sense is you have Brett do almost like what Brock Lesnar did this year. Brett comes back and wins the Rumble in '93 to secure the title shot. That would have to be, you'd have to change the finish of the Rumble.
We are going deep.
That take was so bad that you scared off Rocco.
I'll be very honest with you. I did forget about that, Henry. Your attention to detail on that was actually very, very good, because you caught a major detail that I overlooked, and that was an oversight on my part.
We are going deep down the rabbit hole of what ifs here in book territory. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. For just a second, I thought Razor was flipping Brett off. I was like, holy shit. I take back everything I said. Razor just flipped him off. He wins. But
Phil, I think it's a good thing, because you could say the whole career of Scott Hall, and I mean this in a very positive sense, and I hope it comes across that way. He is really a person that defines those words, what if? Because think about it this way. What if Scott Hall doesn't do that debut in Nitro? I know we're not watching WWF, or we're not watching WCW properties tonight, but what if Scott Hall doesn't do that debut in Macon that starts the NWO?
I don't mean to interrupt, but as a point of order, there are no WCW properties. WCW as a corporation ceased to exist. Actually, on this day in 2001, it's all WWE now, man.
Was it really actually on
It's been 21 years. It was on this day in 2001 that WWF bought WCW from AOL Time Warner.
Okay, that's freaking cool.
Here's the finish.
That is neat.
Razor submits. to the sharpshooter. Guys, that was a great match. Again, I keep saying again and again and again and again, the work that this man put through. But we're gonna move on to WrestleMania 10. So let's get it back into the cock. We're gonna go over to season 10, episode 1. I sure hope so. If we're watching WrestleMania, it should be season 10. Give me a sec. I'll get there too. Rocco, if you can hear me, do the same, please.
Rocco had to black out his screen to get out of his cock because he doesn't want anyone to see it.
Wow.
Meow.
So time
Rocco,
code.
I love you, buddy. Sorry.
Oops. Okay, I don't know if you heard that, but time code's going to be 1 hour 54 minutes even.
1 hour, 54 minutes even. WrestleMania 10. Let's see.
Rocco, we're going off to WrestleMania 10, bud.
Yes.
1 hour 54 minutes even.
Okay.
I love this concept of WrestleMania 10 with the. I'm sorry, I'm one of the weird people that I like the idea of the interim belt and the title, the two belts, and you unify.
Yeah, they did it. They did it very, 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 very well.
I love that concept.
They did it really well.
If they're going to do that for WrestleMania this year, WWE should take a lesson from this match. They really should.
So your screen should show the two belts hanging. And let me know when everyone's ready.
154 what? Again?
Even. 154.00.
You see the iconic image, that WrestleMania 10 door looking down the aisle at MSG.
I love that.
I can tell you when I saw this match, it took years for I still can't remember what match it was, but it took years for any match to top this as the best match of all time in my mind.
It's amazing to me that, as Rocco is trying to find it, for all of the titles that he held in WCW and in other organizations, which we'll probably get into as we get into the ladder match, the Intercontinental Championship was the only belt he ever held in WWE.
Absolutely.
He was never he was never WWE champion.
I have a comment concerning the Intercontinental title. So
I mean, technically, I suppose you could say he was the WWE United States champion while he was in WCW because that lineage is the same. But
yeah. All right, is everybody ready?
Yep.
All right, we're gonna go in 3, 2, 1, and play.
Tracking it.
Yes, indeed. So many memorable WrestleMania moments. We are making history here in Madison Square Garden. And there, that's what it's all about. The two Intercontinental Championship belts hanging from above.
The real one of Shawn Michaels and the bogus one of Razor. There are no rules. The only way to win this match is to ascend the ladder and remove both belts to become the undisputed World Wrestling Federation Intercontinental Champion. Well. Introducing first, accompanied down the aisle by Diesel from San Antonio, Texas, weighing 234 pounds, Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels, ladies and gentlemen. And the ladder. Shawn Michaels steps around. That's an 8-foot ladder that's going to be used in this matchup. And behind Shawn Michaels, you see the 7-foot Diesel. Wrestler extraordinaire and bodyguard from par excellence. How about those glasses Shawn's sporting? Yeah. Little sights right on him, and he's got his sights set on Razor Ramon and those two belts that are hanging from the top of Madison Square Garden. This capacity crowd will witness for the first time ever at a WrestleMania ladder match. And Shawn Michaels. What? The girls love this. They do? Yes. Look at that. Listen to them screaming. They're going crazy.
Well, here we go. You talk about the bad guy. Take a look at him. Here he comes now. Weighing 289 pounds. Razor Ramon. Oh, the gold is dripping off his neck. And there's something dripping off his hair, too. Razor Ramon approaching the ladder. Look at this, Razor Ramon. Did you see what he just did? Yeah, what an idiot. You think that's not bad luck? He walked right under the ladder. Seal his fate. Razor Ramon is tempting his fate in the face of Shawn Michaels. And you can bet he did that for a reason. Because he's stupid. No. Oh, no. Razor Ramon against Shawn Michaels. Would you walk under a ladder, McMahon? Would you break a mirror? Well, with your face, you might want to break the mirror. But would you not turn around if a black cat walked in front of you? Tell me the truth. I'm going to tell you one thing. This is going to be a grueling matchup. We saw one earlier with Savage and Crush. And Crush was left hanging, or just hanging around, so to speak. But nonetheless, who will climb the ladder of success and become the undisputed Intercontinental Champion here at WrestleMania 10?
Real
Yeah.
quick.
So,
Yeah.
I just wanted to say when you think about, and I'm going to show this to everybody. When you think about this version of the Intercontinental Championship, the one that's on the line in this match, the names that come to mind when you think about this title, and I'm going to put it over my shoulder. For the longest time, I said, well, the only people that ever held this belt that mattered were, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, and Macho Man Randy Savage. But after losing Scott this past week and remembering how many times and the legitimacy that he gave to this title, Scott Hall makes, I think, of Scott with this championship now too. So I just want
agree.
to put it out there.
You also forgot Mr. Perfect.
Yeah, there's other Mr. Perfect, Ricky Steamboat, Ultimate Warrior.
No, we can forget him.
Well, no,
Actually,
he was synonymous with it at the time. He really was. So
The goddamn honky tonk man.
Ravishing
Honky Tonk Man.
Rick Rude, Honky Tonk Man. I mean, Double J, Jeff Jarrett, who
Rocky Maivia, The Rock.
Peek behind the curtain. We interviewed Mr. Jarrett today, which will air in an episode in a bit. A lot of great names held this version. Now, this is my favorite. I mean, clearly, I bought a custom version of it. Actually, no, this is the one Henry sent me. But it's still my favorite version of the Intercontinental Championship, and that's why I have it. And Razor Ramon held this belt, I believe, 4 times, or was it 5 times? 4 times. And when I look at it now, I'll think of him as well.
Watching the intros back on this and this whole thing, I was just flooded with memories and emotions because I was at a friend's house when I watched WrestleMania 10 live, and I remember all the yelling and screaming we did for the near falls and falls finishes and hammer and ladder hits and everything for this match. But all of that came back to me when I saw Shawn come back. When Shawn came out, I remembered this was the first match where I actually started to respect Shawn Michaels. And then Razor came out, and I immediately thought that was the coolest motherfucker at WrestleMania 10. And the outfit, the gold vest, is by far his best vest.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I completely agree.
My memory. Oh, go ahead.
No. You're our guest, Rocco the model.
My memories of this. Well, I didn't watch this live, obviously.
Of course not.
I wasn't even 1 year old yet. But
Rocco, you're my new favorite guest, just so you know.
Thank you. I usually get that from people.
Suck up.
I'm looking at you, Brandy. So, I had this on VHS. I played this damn tape out, and specifically this match. I was obsessed with this match for so long. And I could watch it backwards and forwards and still not get tired of this match. The only critique of it is Earl Hebner. I think he's like the worst wrestling referee in history. But that's
They should have brought back
What?
Mr. Perfect.
Wow. I've never heard anyone say that about Earl Hebner ever. I'm not just saying you don't have merit to what you're saying. You're the first person I've ever heard say it.
I'm a Kyoto guy. I'm a Joey
No.
Morella guy.
Joey.
I am a Charles Robinson guy.
What the fuck, Frank?
Yeah, what the hell, Frank?
What are you
Frank
doing?
has broken the screen.
Frank,
And he's
we
on
can't
mute.
hear you. You fail. You
On the
fail.
on the topic
I
of
still
Earl
can't hear
Hebner,
you.
though,
We still can't hear you,
You're
Frank.
can't
your
hear you.
microphone
All right,
is all
I had.
fucked up.
I'm sorry. I had my mic on mute. I muted over here. I'm a hot mess. My dog started to whine, and I'm like, I'm gonna go put her out. And when I went to hit, if you look, when you hit stop cam, it's Rocco or Phil. I still have your fucking logo. So now I'm trying to figure out how in the motherfuck to fix that.
That's okay. Just leave it. It's beautiful.
Edit audio avatar. Here we go. Here we
on
go.
the topic of wrestling referees, though, I do want to take one quick second because on the day we're recording this, our good friend Arja Krasinski just dropped his and Brian Hebner, the son of Earl Hebner, their latest project, Reffing It Up, which I listened to the first episode today. They did a fantastic job. I highly recommend everybody that watches our show go support RJ and Brian in this latest venture. Both fantastic individuals and wish them nothing but the best success.
Does Hebner referee the last match too?
I don't know.
That I don't
I
know.
don't remember.
Probably.
And speaking of me being people's favorite guests, I'm
can
Phil's
look.
favorite also.
I
Actually,
was
no,
waiting for
the
the
last
comment.
match is refereed by one Roddy Piper.
Rocco, I can't
No,
say.
no, I don't mean the last match in this pay-per-view. I mean the next match that we're covering here.
Oh, I don't know.
I can't say that you are definitely not a dull guest.
Okay.
He's
So
also
I
the most
actually have a-
handsome guest.
I'd actually
Thank
like to get
you.
I'd actually like to get everybody's take on this perspective, and some people might disagree, might even be kind of controversial, but I think it's an interesting perspective because I think in this era, Razor Ramon did a lot for the Intercontinental Championship in terms of bringing it legitimacy and bringing it to the mainstream. And the Intercontinental title, I think it's a shame kind of what's happened to it in recent years. It doesn't have that prestige it used to. You could say, though, during the time frame when Brock Lesnar was the Universal or WWE champion and wasn't on the show every week, it seemed like it did have more meaning and more credibility. And I actually think for those reasons, and this is going to be the part that could be a little controversial, I think if you're looking for a modern day comparison to a Razor Ramon, it's The Miz.
You get out of here with that whore opinion. Oh my god.
Well, it's not a ridiculous opinion.
Thank you, Rocco.
It's not completely ridiculous. I mean, I don't see it, but it's not completely ridiculous either.
Frank, what are they teaching these youngins in school? Good
Oh
God.
my word.
You guys crap talk the Miz. The Miz is probably like one of the best they got on the roster
Oh no,
right
I
now.
love this. I was actually
Well,
saying
that's not saying much. They have like 4 people they use regularly on television.
I was just saying in the last episode I recorded that The Miz is the best utility player WWE has.
He is very versatile in that
main
sense.
event, media, reality TV, any fucking thing you want, Miz can do and do well.
Yeah.
I think the argument that Razor Ramon increases the prestige of this belt in this time frame is a valid opinion because as you look down further through the Reigns list, you get past the Shawn Michaels and the Diesels and the JEFFJARRETTs.
You didn't do it right. You got a ha-ha in the middle.
You forgot that.
I'm not going for haha. I wasn't going for funny.
Hey pal, you forgot he's FIRED, fired.
No, it's GOO MME. Gone.
Well, I would just like to say I think the My World podcast is GRREEAAT. Great.
I appreciate your opinion, but I wasn't done talking. So if you could just be quiet for a second and let the big boys talk. Thank you, Money Mike. I love you to death. You get past Razor Ramon and you get to champions of such caliber as Goldust and Dean Douglas. And I'm continuing down the list here. Owen Hart, Steve Austin. The Godfather. China. I'm sorry. You will never be able to change my mind. China should never have been the Intercontinental Champion.
God.
Still,
Okay, first of all, you disparaged the good goddamn name of Goldust, who is a groundbreaking character, a groundbreaking performer, an incredible performer who brought a certain panache to the Intercontinental Championship. And then you disparaged the good goddamn name of China, the ninth wonder of the world, who could whip any man's ass and twice on Sunday.
Okay, if that's true, why
Legit.
wasn't he WWE champion?
She could have been. I think she could have been. I think it would have been great.
Also, all those
But
wrestlers.
we still have not progressed to that point in breaking down the patriarchal society and the idea of men and women not being able to compete in a scripted, story-driven, choreographed environment.
Also, all those superstars you just mentioned are better than Kenny Omega and the Bucks.
No, I won't give you that completely. Shane Douglas.
No, now you're just trying to piss me off. You're not like he's just saying.
Except for Shane Douglas.
He's just like, what can I say to piss Phil off? I'm just waiting for the right time to say Kenny Omega sucks again. Perfect.
Well,
Let's do it right here.
Well, and maybe
Kenny Omega
that one's kind of borderline too, but.
You know what, though? You look at Scott Hall, and I want to go back to something Phil said a couple minutes ago, that utility player that's very versatile. You could say the same thing about Scott Hall, because you look, he was a key component of factions, and he also had very good individual runs by himself, and even just the idea of the Click and really embracing that. I believe it was actually in Triple H's quote on Twitter after Mr. Hall had passed. He had the phrase buddy system. And I mean, people make light of that and say, oh, the Click, caused all these issues and we're dramatic. And some of that might be true, some of it's not. This is certainly not the platform to discuss that. But I think what's important is this idea of people getting through the wrestling business together. And Scott Hall was an integral part of that. And I think that is something we can all relate to one way or another, in that you go through life and you literally pick the people that you want to go through life with. And I think that Scott Hall, for everything that you can say about him, everybody that was a true friend of his, like an X-Pac, like a Triple H, they've had nothing but positive things to say about him. And I'm very glad we're celebrating his legacy tonight with these matches.
One sad thing about that, though, is the only member of the Click who was the only member of the Click that didn't hold a world title anywhere he wrestled in any major organization?
No.
Scott Hall.
What about X-Pac?
X-Pac did?
X-Pac, where's he a world champion at?
X-Pac was also a member of the NWO. I mean, he was also a member of DX. He held championships. He was
never a world champion.
He was a cruiserweight champion.
But
WCW posited that title as a world title. It counts.
That's not
you're backstepping, buddy.
I'm not backstepping, you bald bastard. The WCW Cruiserweight title was listed as the WCW World Cruiserweight title.
Every title in the world.
Not a recognized industry standard.
No. If you're a tag team champion, you're not a world champion.
You're a world
not
tag team
anymore.
champion.
So no.
I gotta agree with Phil.
Hold on a second. Hold on, Phil. The tag belts that are hanging on my wall say World Tag Team Champion.
No, I didn't say that. I said they are called the World Tag Team Championship belts. But it doesn't make you a world's champion.
That's not a world champion, though. That's not a recognized industry standard.
It makes you a world champion within the division in which you wrestle. Did X-Pac, to the best of anybody else's
In
knowledge,
that case, then fucking Michelle McCool is a world champion.
Yeah.
Well, since WWE won't let women wrestle for men's titles, that would technically be a factual statement.
You know what?
It's actually not, because it's not an industry standard recognized world championship.
Well, and this might be a controversial opinion.
The Divas title you're talking about?
Yes. He's saying that because that is the paramount title for that division, that means you are technically
Wasn't
a
she
world
also
champion.
women's champion?
Hey, guess what?
They retired that belt.
Hey, hold on, because I'm just going to shoot a hold on and say if we're going to go with your or anything that says world championship in as a world title. Scott Hall was the USWA Unified World Heavyweight Champion for 28 days.
I said major promotion.
No.
Anything that Jim Cornette ran doesn't count.
USWA was not Jim Cornette. Please check your facts, my dear.
Yeah, that was Memphis.
You know, this is probably a controversial opinion, but what the heck?
Oh shit.
I don't think the weight of the term world champion means as much today as it did years ago. And I'll tell you why. Because none of the WWE belts anymore are referred to as the quote-unquote world title. The biggest belt they have with Roman is the Universal title. And the WWE title used to be referred to as, yes, the WWE World Heavyweight title. Now they just call it the WWE Championship. AEW respects a lot of history and does refer to it as a world title and has a world champion. That I'm acknowledging. So there are major promotions that do. But what I'm saying is this concept of a world champion doesn't mean as much as it did back in the day. Phil, do you have a comment?
I wanted to hold my hand up like Henry. All right, Henry, by your logic, Scott Hall was also the world's television champion for 8 days in WCW.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for Henry to just flip you the bird. What is with the heat on Henry?
He said he keeps changing the parameters of what he said.
Okay, first of all, Baldy, the world television title was intended as a heat drawing device for heels. You'll notice that WWE doesn't use it anymore because WWE never saw a need to have a belt like that. 2, by the time Scott Hall held that title didn't mean shit. That title was, hell, the last champion, I think, was Jim Duggan, and he held that belt after he found it in a trash can until WCW did their reboot and didn't bring the belt back. That was how much WCW thought of the world television title in 2000. When they reset the champions, they didn't bother to bring it back because they didn't care. The World Cruiser, other than the New World Order, in 1996, 1997, 1998 World Championship Wrestling, the most exciting wrestling on that show, on Monday Nitro, was the Cruiserweight division. Unfortunately, because the NWO became so massive and so bloated, it got to a point where after a long period of time, people didn't really notice cruiserweights that much anymore. But the way that the Cruiserweight division was originally intended to be designed was that their champion was supposed to be a world's champion, which bears out because a couple of the first matches in 1996 where we see the WCW Cruiserweight title defended were also defended for other belts as part of the venerated J Crown.
I'm actually inclined to agree with Henry here, and I'll tell you why I'm going to side with Henry on this one, on the concept of a world champion. I'm going to side only to a point, and there's a reason for it, because you can make the case that, yes, and I'm bringing her up, Charlotte Flair is a world champion because she is the pinnacle of her division. As a woman, you cannot compete, or typically you don't compete in the men's division. So I'm inclined to agree that if you look at wrestling structured in the same way as a boxing or mixed martial arts, which is a professional sport that has weight classes, I think you can make the case that at its time during WCW, the Cruiserweight World Champion was the equivalent of a World Heavyweight Champion for that specific weight class. And the reason I say that is it was very uncommon, while not unheard of, for you to see cruiserweights during the 1996 era going up against the main eventers. They were kind of sequestered in their own division. So I actually am inclined to agree with Henry, and I think especially now when you look at the weight of the women's world titles, it adds a whole other dimension to the conversation.
Real quick, I just realized that, and don't think I'm trying to dodge or agree or disagree with anybody, that we're taking away from an amazing fucking ladder match on a Razor Ramon tribute show. So I think we should maybe focus our attention a little bit more.
Oh, absolutely.
That was a good discussion.
Yeah,
it was a very good. It was a very good discussion, and actually, kind of, it was all started by Razor Ramon. But I do agree, Phil. Thank you for keeping us focused. What was everybody's thought on?
Go, Phil.
What'd you say?
I said go, Phil. Go.
Rocco was being a jerk.
Oh,
I was cheering Phil on, actually.
I thought he was. I thought Phil had a question. I was going to say, I think my question that I kind of have going back to the match here is how different does this match look? Because I know Henry made the comment earlier of after this we're going to watch another ladder match at SummerSlam. How different does WrestleMania look if instead of having the two belts defended in a ladder match, they just do a straight up singles match? Do you think that A, still would have been good, B, as impactful, and do you think that would have worked, or was the ladder match the only way to go here?
I think it would have still been a good match because Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels were two, at this period of time, were two of the best in-ring performers that WWE ever had.
Let me ask another
Do I
follow-up.
think it's impactful as impactful without the ladder? No, because this is the first time you've ever seen something like this on WWF television, and it's in the biggest pay-per-view of the year. To do this anywhere else just doesn't work.
Guys, what's the time code? Are we close to the finish?
Actually,
I
we just
had to
finished.
finish.
Just to point out as well, I don't think at this point they'd really done like a unification where you have like a champion versus champion situation. And this is the only way that would be a great visual representation of one person winning both belts so that it becomes one champion again, because you have the visual of both title belts up there, and to win the match you have to take both title belts down, whereas you don't get that when it's just a straight up regular match because you don't see them until the end. So to tell this story you needed something that was different visually and something that was out of the box. Because it's WrestleMania, you want to do something special. So there's no other way to do it than to do this ladder match, and arguably still the most perfect ladder match of all time.
Winner and new, right? Winner and new Intercontinental Champion.
Well,
Much
technically,
deserved.
you could say and still or and new because he had one of the belts.
I think it was winner and the undisputed Intercontinental Champion.
One follow-up question before we transition to the last match, because it bears looking at with this. Could you have done, instead of a ladder match, which I love the ladder match, don't misunderstand me, could you have done an Iron Man match in this instance instead of doing it at WrestleMania 12? Even if it wasn't a 60-minute match, could you have done like a 30-minute Iron Man match?
No.
Time constraints. You still had the main event for the WWF title.
Yeah.
Guys, let's push forward. We're going to push forward to the rematch of this, which not a lot of people talk about, but I'm still very fond of, from SummerSlam 1995. That is the Season 8, Episode 1, and we're going to go to time code 1 hour, 51 minutes, and 40 seconds. And Phil, when you get there and we hit play, please track it.
Give me a second.
Again, it's interviews and entrances, but still, it's always fun to listen to an old Scott Hall promo.
Season what?
Season 8, Episode 1.
Took place from the Pittsburgh Civic Arena, now, or formerly after that would be known as the Mellon Arena, which is where I saw my first WWE pay-per-view live, Bragging Rights 2009.
That's awesome. I
What's
think they
the time
called
code
the
again?
Igloo here. 151.40.
We're over 50.
I'd love to do that.
So
as
since
an-
we're all getting there, it was just
That's what she
announced
said.
today that we have a new ad-free shows watch-along experience on April 5th. We'll get to go back 30 years with the Nature Boy Ric Flair to talk about his match with Randy Savage at WrestleMania 8, and that is my WrestleVersary. That was the very first show that I watched. So I will have been watching wrestling for 30 years.
That's cool.
That
That
is
is really
insane.
cool.
One
My
Randy-
WrestleVersary is sometime in the summer, so I'll be at 34 years. Well, are we all ready?
150.
Not
What is
yet.
the time code again?
For those listening at home, this is time code third time for Phil. 1 hour, 51 minutes, 40 seconds, and he knows I love him.
Brandy, regarding that Flair's...
What was that time code
Flair's
again?
Shut the fuck up.
Brandy,
I just want to see how many times you'll say it.
regarding
Are we
that,
there yet? Like,
Hold on.
Regarding
God,
that
it's
Flair
like
Zoom,
it's like,
sure
it's
to
like
be
asking a girl when you're
wonderful
screwing her.
evening.
Are you there yet?
I don't know.
You don't ask her. You don't ask her. You just, oh, never mind. It's different for a model. Never mind.
Fuck you.
Hey, I know you're getting married. What is your date?
Next April.
Yeah, I was say don't
You
get the
have
date
like
out
I
here.
have an actual date set.
They have a date. They have a date set, but he doesn't have to tell the
We don't need to
thousands
broadcast.
and thousands of viewers of Top Guy Theater.
Oh no, that's fine. I just wanted to say, remember that date because that date will be the last day you ever have good sex in your entire life. After that,
Would you not?
sex from that on out.
Would you not
The
say
views
that?
the views of Phil Jackson are not the views of the Top Guy Theater community.
Yeah,
I
you know,
thought I had
I
new
mean,
theory.
look,
Is every,
look at
damn
look
it,
at Phil
we're veering.
Jackson.
We're veering. We're veering. What are we at the time code, everybody?
Yeah, 150, 140, right?
Yep. I'm gonna count it off. You hit play there, Phil, and track it for me, okay? In 3, 2, 1.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
It was kind of premature, wasn't it?
That was a premature. That was good, Henry. All right, are you there yet, Phil?
151. What? 40?
40 seconds.
What service number are we on again?
Oh,
Wait a second. We haven't started yet?
All right. Yeah, no, seriously,
All
I'm ready to go.
3, 2, 1, play.
Are you there, Doc? Vince, I can't believe what I just see, but I'm standing here with Razor Ramon, the bad guy. He's got an opportunity to make history, become the first 4-time Intercontinental Champion. Will it be the same result as WrestleMania 10? Will history repeat itself?
You know, Doc, that history, it got a way of repeating itself. And I know, Boy Toy, you say that was then, and this is now. A new time, a new place, a new era. And let's face it, with a new generation.
Yeah, but Razor, you know, he's the evil Knievel of the World Wrestling Federation. He doesn't mind taking chances.
You know what? Me, I take a chance every chance I get. And Boy Toy, Chico, it is not just your precious gold that is on the line. It is your body, your career. I'm willing to turn it out tonight, man. And you know why? Because your pain brings me pleasure. You say the time for talking is through. You ready to dance? Well, Razor, he leads.
Well, there you have it, the anticipated weight-up. Back to you, Vince.
And up top, Hendrick gets in the ladies and gentlemen. Here comes the bad guy. Our next contest is a ladder match. It's for the World Wrestling Federation. It's your Continental Championship. The only way to win is by climbing the ladder and retain the World Wrestling Federation Intercontinental Championship belt to the defendant of the ring. Introducing first, from Miami, Florida, weighing 287 pounds, the bad guy, Razor Ramon.
Did it cut to commercial? Yeah, good.
Tremendous ovation for the bad guy, Razor Ramon. And what a matchup this is going to be.
Earl Hebner is the referee for this match, too.
With the match,
He may have been a favorite. I know he was a favorite for Sean. He may have been a favorite for Razor as well.
at WrestleMania 10. Who knows what's going to happen? It's live. It's SummerSlam. It's the World Wrestling Federation. All right. Fourth time. World Wrestling Federation Intercontinental Champion. Should he win here tonight? However, I can tell you this. As badly as the bad guy Razor Ramon wants to take the title from Shawn Michaels. Michaels wants to keep it here again. Take a look at that. Ready to lock up with Razor.
So I have two questions that
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking about as we were watching that. I thought 2 points to bring up that were kind of interesting is since we're talking about ladder matches and the Intercontinental title, it actually seems like you could make the case before the tag titles and the Hardy Boys and that generation of the TLC matches and the tag team ladder matches at WrestleMania. The ladder match was really more synonymous with the Intercontinental title than the world title because we would see it 3 SummerSlams after this. The Rock and Triple H
Yep.
would have a great SummerSlam ladder match for the Intercontinental title, and it got me thinking. I was thinking about The Rock. How good had Razor Ramon stayed in the WWF? And I'm not saying NWO doesn't happen or that. How good could a 1998 or 1999 feud between The Rock and Razor Ramon have been? Do you think that would have been a good feud, and do you think that would have been something that would have been interesting to kind of watch develop in strictly within that time frame of a 1998 to say 2000 Rock?
That's an amazing take, actually. I think that would have been. I mean, had hopefully Scott kept his demons on course and was this version of the. I just read his lips and he's going, fucking bring it down. I can't reach that. They were talking about how high they pulled it. They did this. I remember on commentary, Vince goes, "Oh, I guess they're saying you'd have to be Andre the Giant to be able to get that belt down from there."
Well, and just a sidebar on that, Frank. That's that domed ceiling because if you ever look at the way that arena set up, it was a dome. I mean, it's since been demolished, but actually, the first event that I was ever there for, the way it was set up, it had various levels. And long story short, we weren't the tippy top level, but we were the second level, and it's high, so you could hoist that belt up pretty high.
Yeah, I remember this fondly that they had so much trouble like setting the belt to a certain spot, and now they're gonna do the little look up at it and walk toward the middle and bump each other. That's a really I really often think, I mean, WCW would have had no momentum if Hall had not made the jump and had Nash not made the jump, and the kind of feuds we could have seen in the World Wrestling Federation with Hall and Nash during the Attitude Era. I mean, we could have seen a whole different DX. I mean, the Click could have been legit on screen. Michael, I've never thought of it that way, and that's amazing.
I just
but
thought
if
of
they
it
don't
now.
leave, what happens to Steve Austin?
Good point.
That's a great point too.
He would have gotten there eventually. I think his rise is inevitable. I think it looks different. Okay, go ahead, Brandy. I see you shaking your head. Go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, it wouldn't have happened because Scott left because he wanted to be paid more money. And Vince did not think he was worth more than what he was currently making. So they're just like with Brett having to leave because Vince couldn't honor his contract. Vince couldn't pay Razor more money or didn't feel he was worth paying him, say, an Undertaker or a Shawn Michaels level or even a Kevin Nash level of pay. And, we can always go back and, what ifs and that would have been great. I don't think if you left Shawn in that state of mind that he was in this era with all of his people around him to encourage him and feed that ego and give that sense of protection, there would have been allowed to have that sort of natural rise of a Steve Austin, because Shawn was always going to make it about him.
So what you're saying is that there could have been no birth of the Attitude Era had they stayed.
Correct.
I
Side
actually
point.
go ahead, Henry. You first.
Say in the negotiations with McMahon before he ultimately decides to jump ship WCW, say Vince McMahon says to Scott Hall, look, I can't give you more money. But after WrestleMania, what if I stick you in a program with Shawn Michaels and you eventually become my top champion?
Cash
You
and
think that
creative.
gets him to
I love
stay?
that.
Well, I mean, when you're, it's known that when you're the champion and in the main event, you get more money on the house, right? And
Right,
so,
but I don't believe that Vince ever truly saw him as somebody he could put in that position. So I do believe that's why he's like, no, I can't pay you any more money because I don't see you at that level. I don't know. We don't know the
Mhm.
particulars of if
Right.
there was ever the discussion of Scott moving into the main event picture permanently and possibly as champion. So while that may have been incentive for him to stay, I think that may have been worse for Shawn, because then he'd have everybody around him feeding his little ego, which was enormous, not little.
And the
That's what he
product would
You
said.
know,
suffer
you could
because of
make
it.
the. You go ahead, Henry.
I do think it's worth noting, since I think it was you just a second ago, Money Mike, that mentioned the jump to WCW.
Yeah, I
I
did.
was going somewhere before we got sidetracked in the last match, and I kind of want to come back to it real fast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amongst Scott Hall's list of accolades, the last match that we watched, the ladder match at WrestleMania 10, was the PWI Match of the Year for the year 1994. I think, if I remember right, Hogan was the comeback wrestler of the year that year too. So take that what you will. This match also won a Slammy Award in 1996 for being the best match of the year in the eyes of the WWE.
I mean, anytime these two got, then that's why we kind of went this route, because anytime, like we could have, gone down the road where it was Razor and Kid or Razor and Diesel. We could have, I mean, we could have watched SummerSlam '94. I mean, we could have done a 10-match best of just from WWE.
Easily.
I mean, like, I've got the SummerSlam '94 poster hanging up. We could have gone that route. We could have done that, or
His match with the 1-2-3 Kid from Raw.
yep, that yeah, yeah. I
How
mean,
am-
getting those
how-
guys together was gold.
It also feels like it's worth noting here that give me just a second, because I got to read from top to bottom. Hall was a 9-time World Tag Team Champion in 3 separate promotions. He was the AWA World Tag Champs with Kurt Hennig. He was the Impact Wrestling Tag Team Champions with Kevin Nash and Eric Young. And he was a 7-time WCW World Tag Team Champion. 6 of those reigns were with Kevin Nash. One of those reigns with Nash was also with X-Pac, where they defended the title under the Freebird rule. The last one being with the Giant. In WCW, he was also the World Television Champion when that title became a straight joke, but we're not going to go back to that. The WCW United States Champion twice, and he was also the DDT Pro Wrestling Iron Man Heavy Metalweight Champion, whatever that is. I am not as familiar with
So
Jeff.
that is a comedy title from DDT Pro, which actually just came out. They are partnering with AEW. We're going to see some crossover between those promotions, but that was sort of their version of the hardcore title, where it was defended 24/7. So you saw a lot of interesting title changes and champions that you wouldn't necessarily see because the rules were different. So you do have those champions like a Scott Hall. I mean, the fucking Invisible Man was this champion.
He was also the holder of the WWC Caribbean Heavyweight and Universal Heavyweight titles with one individual reign in each. And Scott Hall was a man who, like a handful of others, is a double member of the WWE Hall of Fame. He was inducted by himself as Razor Ramon, the character we see now, in 2014. And then in 2021, as part of the 2020 class, was inducted alongside NWO stable members Kevin Nash, Hulk Hogan, and Eric Bischoff.
And
Almost said he was inducted alongside himself.
And Sean Waltman.
That's Degeneration X.
Yes, sorry. Got my things crossed.
And if I remember, Bischoff wasn't a part of that. Bischoff was by himself.
No, Bischoff was on his own.
It was Hogan, Hall, Nash, X-Pac.
My apologies. You're
No, it's
right.
okay. It's late here on the East Coast.
I
Yeah.
thought the same thing, Henry, because Bischoff
Goddamn
went
pal.
in the 2021.
You know, the one thing I
class.
wonder as I start talking about all these different reigns out loud,
What?
how come Hall never got a shot at the WCW World Heavyweight title?
He did.
When?
He won World War III.
Oh, that's right.
Wasn't that the World
Oh,
War
God,
III
that was
right
terrible.
before Starrcade '97 when Eric Bischoff fucked everything up?
No, it was after that.
No.
I'll have to go back and look.
I
Yeah,
like
that
this.
was the World War III right before Starrcade '97, where the 15th month build for a Sting Hulk Hogan match got monstrously fucked up by WCW and led to its ultimate demise.
I wanted to kind of, because this match, really it's good, and I think so fondly of it. I mean, looking back at this particular SummerSlam, this is one of the highlights. There wasn't many highlights in this era, but this certainly was one of them.
Hey, Scott Hall won the 60-man Battle Royal at World War III on November 23rd, 1997, earning himself a crack at the WCW World title. That match took place at Uncensored opposite the newly crowned world champion Sting.
So it was
I
after.
actually remember that, because didn't they go through the whole? They stripped him of the belt, and him and Hogan wrestled again, and then he finally won the belt.
Which
And
is
then
why it didn't happen till Uncensored, which is, I believe, in February or March.
Yes.
Uncensored was March, yeah. Rocco, I just wanted to just ask you what Scott Hall meant to you,
Damn.
because you and I had a candid conversation. I won't get too far into it, but when it was announced that he had passed, I believe it was we were recording this on a Monday. It was a week ago. You and I had a candid conversation about it. So I just wanted to, we'll ask this question to everybody to end the show. But I just wanted to ask what Scott meant to you.
Scott. I'm sorry, guys.
Take your time.
No
I
rush.
loved it. I loved him. And I'll tell you why. He made, I wanted to be him. 8-year-old Rocco wanted to be him. I've got pictures of me doing like the little Razor Ramon thing. There was something about him. He could work with anything.
Mm-hmm.
Anything, anyone. You throw a broomstick in his hand, like Bruce Richard says. It was gold. In real time, I knew a lot of him with NWO stuff, a lot of the WCW stuff. But then going back to the Razor Ramon stuff as a kid, loving that. I kind of veered off a little bit when he went to TNA and so on and so forth. When I was a kid, I would pretend to be Scott Hall with my buddy who was pretending to be Kevin Nash. He meant so much in that, hey, listen, he made walking around with a toothpick cool. I thought that was just something my dad did. It was just his swagger, the way about him. I can't put the right word because I'm still heartbroken over this. And I could be honest on here.
Of course you can.
As soon as I read that he passed, I cried. And Maria is like, "You okay? And she kind of real quick. We hugged, and I said I haven't gotten emotional over a wrestler like this in a very long time. Probably the first, and really, he was a part of my childhood. He was a part of me being a kid. And when I think, and Michael could probably attest to this, and a lot of you guys could attest to this, When you start to think people of that caliber of Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, X Pac, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Rock, Austin, Kane, Undertaker, those were my guys when I was a kid. When you start thinking that of people passing on, you're like, well, there goes my childhood. But
I would agree with that.
I
This was the first one that I kind of thought like somebody from that generation that wasn't an unexpected death. And I apologize if I interrupted you, Rocco, but I was just agreeing with what you said.
No, but yeah, that was my guy, and it just not it's not the same. Bad times don't last. Bad time, but bad guys do. Love you, Scott.
Brandy, let's go to you. Again, we're having a barn burner here with Razor and Sean WrestleMania or SummerSlam '95.
Look at Sean's tights, by the way. Those are some pretty cool freaking tights, by the way.
Sean always had the best tights.
True or false? You have those tights in your closet, Frank.
No comment. Brandy,
In his closet, he's wearing them right now.
What Scott mean to you?
Scott was the first kind of like alpha male type character that I remember, and it was cool, and it became part of the vernacular when somebody was very charismatic that you said that they were oozing machismo.
Meng.
And he's just one of those people that you never thought would actually die. Because their personality was so large. And a lot of people said the same thing with Road Warrior Hawk when he passed away. Just these people with these larger than life personalities, you can't picture the world without them. And when you try and face that reality, it's incredibly painful. And as we sort of move through this generation, and as the people from our childhood start to unfortunately leave us, you confront mortality and acceptance in a way that you may not ordinarily. Scott's the biggest stories are the what ifs. Way back before Scott got into wrestling, Scott was a bouncer and Scott murdered a man because he had to defend himself.
Yep.
And that broke him in a way that left him chasing demons. And what if that had never happened? Maybe Scott would still be alive, but maybe Scott wouldn't have been a wrestler. Maybe Scott wouldn't be chasing the high of being in front of a crowd and performing. So with every what if, there's the good and there's the bad. And with the good and the bad for Scott, I wouldn't change anything about him, because going through what he went through showed us that it's never too late to start a new path and to start life anew. And I am so thankful that he got to live the last years of his life.
Yep.
Healthy and not in pain and not dependent on substances. And then of course COVID happened, and when you're an addict and you have to deal with those and you can't connect with people, it's really hard. So it reminds you that you need to, number one, take care of yourself, seek help, reach out. And even if it's the worst time in your life, bad times don't last.
Right. But bad guys do, right?
Absolutely.
Michael, what's Scott mean to you?
So I'm going to have a very unique perspective in that I unfortunately didn't have the pleasure of watching him wrestle live until he was in TNA. But I will say this, the show we've just done tonight that we're in the middle of, this is probably my favorite show that we've done. I think the conversation, I say it all the time, but this time I truly mean it. The conversation's been fantastic, and I've enjoyed it more as a listener and getting to hear what Scott Hall meant to you guys, because I feel like I've seen Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, through your eyes. And that to me is what's cool. I don't have a lot of personal memories of Scott Hall other than his appearance on the 83 Weeks podcast and his work in TNA. I think he was a phenomenal talent, and from what everyone has said, a phenomenal human being as well. And it's just so cool for me to see how it's impacted all of you. And I really appreciate everything that you guys have brought and what you've shared, because it's given me a new respect for who Scott Hall was as a person in addition to a talent. And that's why I love doing this podcast, is to get new perspectives. And I think it's wonderful to see how individuals that we may never meet in person or that we just meet in passing can positively impact us. And you know, ad free shows the other day sent out the tweet, and it just said, without Scott Hall there would be no, and I was trying to think what to put, and ultimately I typed there would be no ad free shows, because Scott Hall was a revolutionary figure in changing the way people viewed and interacted with the wrestling business. And I'm grateful for people like Scott Hall that are the reason that wrestling nostalgia is what it is today. And it's what's brought all of you here and into my life, which means a great deal to me personally, as I say all the time. So, really, for me, Scott Hall, thank you for everything that you have contributed to the business. And your legacy is most definitely intact and in good hands, like the people here today that truly care about preserving it for future.
Henry, how about you, bud?
I think, in all honesty, I remember Razor Ramon as a little kid. Everybody wanted to be like the bad guy. I know my Scarface impression of Tony Montana is just horrible. Kind of bear with me for a minute. I think the thing that I will always remember him the most for is the night that he showed up on Nitro, and it kicked off a different era in professional wrestling, because we all knew him as Razor Ramon. What the fuck's he doing here in WCW? And it would lead in to some of arguably the best wrestling, some of the best promotional gimmicks, some of the best everything of the mid to late 1990s. I would like to think that if Scott Hall could have conquered his demons, that just maybe he would have been a world champion. It's worth mentioning that though the World Wrestling Council isn't a major promotion in the same stance that WWE or WCW were or still are today, he was a world champion just once in his storied career. Part of me wonders, with the legacy that he leaves, if maybe that reign would have been better somewhere else, or maybe if there shouldn't have been more of them. Scott Hall would ultimately see an erstwhile career cut short, I think, in its prime because of his own personal demons. I don't think that's fair. I know that life's not supposed to be fair, but I think at the end of the day, I will best remember Scott Hall for the night that he showed up and said the phrase, "You people, you know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here." Because that kicked off everything.
Mm-hmm.
For better or for worse, Scott Hall will be missed. And we'll never see anyone like him again.
Phil?
My thoughts on this are all over the place for a litany of reasons emotionally. So I didn't get to start actually watching wrestling on television until 93, 94. Prior to that, everything I got was VHS tapes from friends or the local library or the video store. And, so when Scott Hall was just starting out in WWE, WWF, was the same time I started watching wrestling on television. So I started my wrestling journey live with Scott Hall. And I had the SNES game Royal Rumble, and Scott Hall is one of the characters on there, and I'm almost positive I played him more than any other character after this match because I just thought he was such a badass. And and then his journey, it continued, 93, 94, 95, and it just went over to WCW. And through my entire fandom, um, you know towards 95, 96, I was able to watch every single pay-per-view that both WWF and WCW had. So I watched Scott Hall's career progression from his starting out in WWF to the demise of WCW to the NWO 2.0, whatever the hell you want to call it, back in WWF, to the end of that. All of it, good, bad, indifferent, everything. And so Scott Hall, to me, in my peak, in my from '93 to 2002, from the time I was um, 12 to the time I was 20, wrestling with Scott Hall. Every channel, I would WWF. There's Scott Hall. Holy shit! There's Scott Hall coming down the stairs in WCW. What's he doing here? Internet didn't exist. What the hell's going on? Is Scott Hall coming to take over? Is the bad guy coming to take care of this shit in WCW? I had no idea. And you know, I was actually really happy when he won that match in World War III, and kept wondering when that eventual title shot would come because it was always put off as an afterthought, and I never understood why. Not knowing he had demons, not knowing that he was having issues in WCW at that point. But for me, from my childhood, growing up with wrestling, I grew up through Scott Hall's career. So for me, I have emotions with Scott Hall. I have sitting in my friend's house, jumping up and down during these ladder matches with the highs and the lows of everything that's going on. I have the holy shit moments of him coming down the stairs in WCW and the formation of the NWO and all the bullshit that they did to terrorize all of the faces, which eventually I started thinking, bullshit. If he did this in WWF and he's over here in WCW and he's in the NWO, this must be where it's at. And I started jumping on the NWO train. And I can't picture any part of anything I have wrestling wise up until the end of the second NWO run without Scott Hall in it. I just can't. He's the first wrestler to pass away from that generation for me. I know Mr. Perfect died and other people died, but from the point at which I started watching and was really invested until now, Scott Hall was the first guy that really hit home for me as one of the ones that left us, and it sucks ass. I don't know any other way to put it because part of wrestling died 1 week ago. That's how I feel.
Sean goes over here. Great moment where he hands the Intercontinental Championship. Razor does to Sean in what we thought was going to be a heel turn, but he shakes his hand. They hug. We're going to end it here. I'm going to give you my quick take, and that is that I've always felt that I personally had a front row seat to two of the greatest generations in professional wrestling, that being the 80s Hogan era into what some would look at as the 93, 94, 95, and 96 lull, which is what we just witnessed here tonight, into the Attitude Era and the rise of WCW. And at the forefront of that is Scott Hall. I started watching professional wrestling in 1988. I became known and or aware of Scott in 1992, and followed his career until his eventual release in 2002 from the World Wrestling Federation. I did not follow him in TNA, but I always thought fondly of him. And like Phil said, we lost Mr. Perfect, Big Boss Man, Rick Rude. They all died suddenly. There was the Benoit tragedy. There was Owen. There was Eddie. Those all hurt. Those all really, really hurt. This one hurts too because to this day, when I get a phone call from a certain friend of mine, Brandy knows him, Justin. Uh,
Oh.
we always say, "Hey yo," and that wouldn't come anywhere else from. We wouldn't have that without Scott, and he played his Razor Ramon character perfectly. So I really am I'm thankful for what he gave to us, and I will remember the great positive things. And um, uh, I think that he is going to have some really good matches with Owen up there. I think him and Eddie are going to throw down. Um,
Him and Eddie together. I'm sorry, heaven. I'm
yeah,
really sorry.
that was right. I mean, Mr. Perfect and him,
They've ribbed each
Macho
other.
Man,
They've ribbed each other a few times up there.
right. So, with that being said, guys, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight for just a little tribute to the bad guy. And I think we're gonna go out the way that we started, and that's just showing our in memory. And yep, there goes the toothpick. Scott, we love you, buddy.